Both Kamala Harris and Donald Trump are campaigning in the Great Lakes state this hour, where voting already is underway. Data from the Michigan Secretary of State shows that more than 944,000, almost a million, mail-in ballots have already been cast in Michigan. Let's bring in my panel of political experts. And Van Jones, do you think the Harris campaign is doing a good enough job in Michigan, especially with the Arab American and Muslim American community, and especially with the African American community?
Look, I think that they're still in the fight there. Ordinarily, by now, with the Black community, it's literally just a turnout operation. And in some ways, it still can be, because Black folks are going to outvote for Kamala Harris more than anybody else. Black people are going to be voting in our big majority. But there is still a persuasion operation for Black voters. As you guys know, in campaigns, you have persuasion and you have turnout. Right now, you should be in turnout mode for the Black community and turnout mode for the Muslim community. You're still in persuasion mode for a lot of places. So that is a struggle. At the same time, it's neck and neck. We know for sure Arab, Muslim, and Black voters are going to vote in their big majority for Kamala Harris, but the number matters, and we're still trying to get to the right number in both Michigan and Pennsylvania.
Jasmine, you follow the Harris campaign. What are you hearing from your sources? How are people feeling on the campaign?
Yeah, well, I think people are concerned about the tightness, but they feel like they should be concerned because they want to be running this campaign as the underdog, not running it as though they feel that they're ahead. They've seen these numbers be very, very tight, but what they say that they're not seeing, which is giving some folks hope, is that they're not seeing Donald Trump move away from her. They're seeing them kind of stay neck and neck. And so that's giving folks on the campaign hope, but they recognize that they really have to do more in these last 3 weeks than maybe they've even done before that. I think what's really interesting, Jake, is that they're kind of attacking this on multiple fronts. First of all, they were really criticized in the first few months of her campaign, even though, of course, it's only been 100 days or so, by the fact that they were being kind of media-verse. Now you're seeing them adopt a kind of more Donald Trump, throw anything at the wall and see what sticks, risky kind of media strategy that I think is leading a lot of the messaging with the campaign. You're also seeing her kind of tick up the campaign events. Obviously, we're going to see her really focus on the blue wall in the next few weeks. But we're also seeing her try to do different things, not just make this a base election, which we all believed it to be, but also expand the base. Some of what Priscilla was talking about, talking to Republican voters, not necessarily that were Trump voters, or maybe they were Trump voters in 2016 and 2020, but also voted for Nikki Haley in the primary. So they kind of have a multi-pronged strategy here. Yes, as Van Jones saying, still focusing on persuasion, particularly on their people of color voters, what they're seeing some softer numbers maybe than what Biden had before, but also with what would originally be thought to be kind of hard to get voters for a Democrat.
David, whatever you thought of Kamala Harris on Fox, she went on Fox, and I don't think Donald Trump has done an interview with a non-friendly to him outlet since, I don't even know, I can't even think of it, but let's say at least since the last debate. Is it time, given the tightness of this race, is it time for him to step outside of his comfort zone and come on CNN or do a town hall with CBS or NBC? Is it time for him to do some of the things that the Trump campaign has been yelling that Harris needs to do?
Yeah, Jake, look, I think if you ask Donald Trump that, he'd say every media interview he does is with an unfriendly outlet, right? But I hear your concerns. I think the Trump campaign feels that they're doing plenty. They're doing, as Jasmine said, non-traditional. The Harris campaign's doing non-traditional outlets. They're trying to get to people and voters where they are. I think the Trump campaign's trying to do the same kind of things. They did David Ben Patrick, I believe is how I always get his initials wrong, but they're doing podcasts and things like that where they feel like they're reaching voters where they are and they're getting to them. As Van and Jasmine both point out correctly, this is a very, very tight race in Michigan and Pennsylvania. But what I don't hear, these are blue wall states where Democrats must win. These are the states that Democrats should be ahead in comfortably at this point in the game. As Van said, they should be focusing on their turnout efforts at this point, and they're still in persuasion. And that's just not a good thing, can't be a good thing. I know in Jake, in our home state, in the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania, I would say that Donald Trump's probably up by a percentage point right now, and that he's going to the Steelers game this weekend, going to be spending a lot of time there doing kind of non-traditional things, trying to motivate folks who might not be reachable otherwise, and showing Elon Musk is in Pennsylvania. So lots of things going on in the blue wall states, and at least in Pennsylvania, I think Trump is up now by a bit.
Van, tomorrow Kamala Harris is going to be with Lizzo in Detroit. Then she's going to meet up with Usher at a rally in Atlanta. Next Thursday, she's going to return to Georgia, but this time with former President Obama. Then next Saturday, she's going to appear with Michelle Obama in Michigan. What does this star power do, if anything? Is it just about turnout and excitement?
Well, I think we forget, those of us who are involved in politics 24 hours a day forget most people are not. Most people have real lives. And culture, when you can bring in culture, then people who may not care so much about what's going on in the tick and tock of an election, they may care about Lizzo. They may care about something funny that Lizzo says or does. And suddenly you're reminding people, hey, there's an election going on. Kamala Harris is out there. Look, it's interesting. And you're creating a bigger conversation about Kamala Harris. And I think that's very, very important.
Jasmine, what do you think?
I think that this is something that Democrats do all the time, particularly when we know that we're in that final stretch. They bring out folks who are popular, not just with Black Americans, but with young people, try to get this effort to drive them to the polls, right? I think we had a discussion about persuasion and get out the vote. Bringing Lizzo in, bringing Usher in, these are really get out the vote tactics. I know that the campaign wants Usher to focus on having people go to the polls and go to the polls early so that they have that really hard data in lieu of maybe kind of the statistical polls being all over the place. They have that hard data of where to know where to surge money in the last week or two. And so I think that these are the tactics that Democrats lean on when they get to that final stretch, hoping that it breaks that kind of third wall and gets people to go turn in their ballots, to go to the polls in a more efficient way than maybe Kamala Harris or some other older Democrats, even though she's a younger Democrat comparison to President Biden, can do themselves.
David, Trump said today he's going to... Go ahead.
I was going to say, I would just be mindful. You probably remember this, Jake, because it was in your hometown of Philadelphia. The night before the election in 2016, you had Barack and Michelle Obama. Oh, yeah. You had Jay-Z and Beyonce. You had Bruce Springsteen and John Bon Jovi.
JBJ,
and you had Bill Clinton.
Yep.
Yeah, that is an incredible... Jake, I was there on the mall, 35,000 people. I had a pit in my stomach. I was sick to my stomach because I thought, wow, this is the end for us. This is the end for the Trump campaign. And the next day I woke up and, it was the sun came up and Donald Trump won that day. So, as much star power as you want to turn out, voters still vote.
Well, David, I would love to see Beyonce come out on the stage. I don't know about you.
Van, I want to play some sound of what Trump told a group of men at a barbershop in New York yesterday. Take a listen.
You guys are the same as me. It's the same stuff. We were born the same way. I grew up in Queens and all of that. I mean, it's. I had a great father. I had a father who was a great guy. I know you people so well without knowing you. I know you so well. When I walked in here, I said, "This is home territory."
That's Donald from Queens hanging out in the Bronx. There. What'd you make of that, Van?
Hey, listen, he's a charmer. He's a charmer. All those guys grew up with, multimillionaire dads that gave him millions of dollars. And, look, but listen, that is the appeal of a Donald Trump. And people like us can laugh it off, but it can be very effective. It can be very endearing. And the fact that he's there trying, I think, is a good thing. Now, people fall for it. I mean, he's a world's most famous con man. If you fall for it, that's, shame on you. But I think that people should take seriously. He does have appeal, and he is trying, and that's one of the reasons you hear a lot of knees knocking among Democrats right now.
Absolutely, Van, David,
yeah,
Jasmine.
He's great at those. He's great at those OTR kind of things, Jake. He connects.
Go ahead, Van.
Yeah, but the best thing we can do as Democrats, can somebody lock the door and don't let David Urban out of wherever he is, because he's the one driving up all these numbers in Pennsylvania. Keep David Urban off the campaign trail, CNN, please.
David, Van, Jasmine, appreciate it.
Right, everyone's with me now here. Just to begin, Karen, Harris and Trump both in Michigan. And what's interesting when you see them in the same county, a county that I said used to be a Republican stronghold, but in recent elections, 3 in a row, has gone Democratic, right? So Harris is choosing to spend time there right now. And, Elena's reporting that Michigan is the blue wall state that the Trump campaign is most confident about. How do you see it, Karen? And are you confident that the Democrats will win Michigan?
Well, Aaron, thanks for having me. Of course, I went through 2016, so I'm not confident of anything until the new president is sworn in. Let me just say that right off the bat. But we're feeling good. I mean, I'm feeling good about Michigan, honestly. I mean, this is where ground game really matters. And here's the significance of what we just saw. So Kamala Harris is in Oakland County. That is part of expanding the map. She is trying to broaden her coalition. She's talking to independents and center right and center left and far left and independents, right? Donald Trump can't even fill a venue with his base. So that says to me that I guess the good folks of Detroit were, they're sending their own signal of how they feel about what he said the last time he was there. But look, as I say, this is where ground game matters, because right now it is all about getting people out to vote.
So Mark, Karen, interesting. Karen's view is, she's running up, trying to run up the vote where she can, as opposed to being concerned about a county that had gone Democratic in the most recent elections and had gone Republican before, as opposed to being concerned about losing it. When you talk to people on the Trump campaign, what are they saying about Michigan? Are they so confident?
Well, they always project confidence, even when the numbers might not be with them.
Yeah.
If you look at the polling averages, I think Kamala Harris is only ahead by 0.6 percentage points in Michigan. It is a jump ball. What the Trump campaign sees a victory path forward in Michigan looks like this, is he gets a small sliver, they don't expect a lot, of black men to vote for him. There are those union voters and union households that have expressed some reservations about Kamala Harris and that they would come Trump's way as well. He would also do as well, he hopes, with white voters, white male voters, as he did in 2016, not in 2020. And he would get this sliver of Arab American and Muslim American voters who've expressed some concerns with the Biden administration's response to Israel and Gaza. And as he is in Hamtramck and has bragged about the endorsement of the mayor there in a Muslim-heavy city, they would support him not only because of his foreign policy, but also Trump's campaign hopes because of his social conservative policy, issues like transgender surgeries and the like for kids and transgender males or females in women's sports. And so that's what their win would look like.
It's interesting when you talk about the Israel issue. Interesting that if you were worried that that you would go to Trump, given the concerns that some of those voters might have about Harris, Pakistan American PAC today did endorse Trump, which was interesting after introducing both campaigns, interviewing both campaigns. Sorry, Jane, you heard that back and forth between Harris and Trump on the energy issue. Politico reported that he canceled interviews because of exhaustion. So I just wanted to play a little bit more of his reaction to Harris's comments about that. Here he is.
What event did I cancel? I haven't canceled. She doesn't go to any events. She's a loser. She doesn't go to any events. She didn't even show up for the Catholics last night at the hotel. It was insulting. All they are is sound bites. So the day I was at Fox and Friends at 7 in the morning. I then went to 2 different other appearances. I then made about 15 phone calls.
And to be fair, he is doing a lot, right? He did go to the Al Smith dinner in New York last night. We were able to see him for the entire time that others were speaking. He was fully engaged. Harris sent that recorded video that we saw there. He did do that interview this morning, a roundtable this evening, a rally tonight. Is that not enough?
Well, I think given the fact that he fell asleep during an event today and the fact that his Fox and Friends interview featured, how can I put this? Some nonsensical statements. Now, granted, the thing with Donald Trump is that, this is what he's been like for a long time. But I will say that the energy issue, it's clear that it is annoying him. It is clear that Harris bringing that up has annoyed him as he keeps bringing it up. And it's interesting because there are specific things you can do to annoy him. 1, accuse him of being low energy. And 2, do something on Fox that he doesn't like. And this is now twice that this has taken place. So I do think it's clearly an issue for him, or else he wouldn't keep bringing it up.
Well, it is under his skin, Aaron. Clearly, I mean, he's angered by it, which may be exactly why she's she's, sort of picking at that scab.
Well, in the land of reality, the dog won't hunt that Donald Trump doesn't have energy, right? I mean, what has he done? 59 interviews to Kamala Harris's 26 since she was announced. He's more than doubled her at this point. And he's doing multiple events a day. But that's what both candidates should be doing. The exception to the rule shouldn't be that there might be a scheduling snafu and that Trump's team might be trying to put things on the calendar that don't firm up because of other things on the schedule. It's a presidential campaign. Everybody should be out there. They should be doing 3 rallies a day. You should be doing multiple roundtable events. You should be doing radio interviews and local television poll-a-sides the entire time. Both candidates should do it. And I would argue, and I think the facts would bear out, Donald Trump is doing a lot more of all of that than Kamala Harris is. And because she waited so long to try and engage voters and engage the media and talk through different outlets, that's why she's having to try to make up ground now, because she is slipping in the polls.
Now, Mark, she did do that interview with Fox this week that I know that Trump supporters found that say, oh, she didn't do well. Her supporters felt she walked into the lion's den and she fought back and she's on fire, and that's how they saw it very differently. But everybody noticed that, including him. He noticed it. He brought it up at the Al Smith dinner last night that she had done that interview. Does it bother him that she did that? I mean, because there's got to be a part of him that said, okay, the lion's den take on that. He would see it the same way.
I think he's happier with her responses that they're going to use in future ads. I think Aaron is right. What really is the thing that bothers him, or what you've mentioned that really bothers him, is the fact that he's being attacked for his energy levels in the campaign trail. I ran the numbers. Since October 1st, the beginning of the month, in 18 days, he's done 28 events in 26 cities spread across 12 states. And when Kamala Harris says that he's hiding from the public and the press, that just drives him crazy. And she knows what she's doing, and so far it does seem to be working. He's swinging at every pitch.
Right. I mean, that's the thing. Some of this is just about getting under someone's skin. So, Karen, I want to ask you about one of those many appearances that Trump did. Today was an interview that aired today with the former professional wrestler and media personality Tyrus, and I wanted to play one exchange that everyone is talking about. Here it is.
We need to see that fathers are capable of great things, because we've dealt with it, especially in the last 3.5 years, a complete dismemberment of what it is to be a man. We're under attack for everything.
We are. Well, actually, manhood is under attack.
Yeah.
I see things that are so beautiful, and the next day I see them knocking the hell out of somebody for doing something that a day before I said, what a wonderful thing. No, we have to get back a little bit more.
Okay, Karen, I'll be honest, I don't really know what he was saying after the core point there, but he said manhood is under attack. Now, to be fair, that was in response to somebody who said a dismemberment of what it is to be a man, which let's just not take literally. But when he says manhood is under attack, is that effective with a certain group of voters? I mean, you can say, okay, well, I didn't know Maxim made endorsements, the magazine, but they did come out and endorse Trump today.
Yeah, look, he believes that, and we saw this, all the way back to 2016 when he was sort of, and frankly, years ago in the 80s, right, in New York, that was part of his swagger, right, that he was this kind of playboy, and that's kind of part of his definition of manhood, and that is something he has put forward time and time again. It's what that infamous, you can grab him by the you-know-what was all about. At the same time, I think men are a lot smarter, most men, than Donald Trump. I should say the majority of American men. I think they're smart enough to know that he's a huckster, and he's been trying to, he's selling a shtick. They can either buy it or not. I think they're smart enough to know that the lives of their daughters and their sisters and their mothers, the women in their lives, are in danger by some of the, by what Donald Trump would do. And I think they're smart enough to recognize that he is actually not going to be good for the bottom line, given that he's so into tariffs, which will increase inflation.
So, Mark, when Trump says, well, actually, manhood is under attack, there are times that he does say things for hyperbole's sake or whatever, but it would actually seem this is one of those ones he actually means. I don't know. Is that what you understand it to be?
Yeah, that's a general belief in Republican and conservative circles, and that's a dividing line that we're seeing in this campaign, where there was a recent article in the Washington Post that accused the Trump campaign of being fueled by too much toxic masculinity. And the Trump campaign read that as essentially an attack on Trump for just standing up for men. This is one of these kind of men are from Mars and women are from Venus sort of campaigns that we're looking at.
I want to get some more with our political experts who are joining us right now here in the Situation Room. And Gloria Borger, I'll start with you. Harris seems to be taking a page out of Trump's old playbook against Biden, as you know, saying that Trump is now exhausted and unfit.
Well, I think she now is talking about what a risk Donald Trump would be. You know, at the beginning of the campaign, she had to introduce herself to the American people, reintroduce herself. She had to reassure them that she had the competency to become president of the United States. And I think that part of the campaign is kind of over. I think she's not talking about her biography anymore. What she is talking about is Donald Trump's biography and talking about how he is unstable, as she calls it, unhinged, et cetera, and his health, refusing to release his health records. And she is making the case that the American people should be alarmed at the prospect of 4 years of Donald Trump as president of the United States. The campaign believes that that has a lot of resonance with voters, and that's where they should be going right now.
She's clearly a lot younger than he is.
I mean, you are seeing it, and it fits into the message of turn the page. I mean, Donald Trump is the oldest person to ever run for president of the United States in the history of this country. And not only that, but you talk about the medical records, you talk about CNBC, you talk about NBC, 60 Minutes, the Shade Room, where the story actually emerged from, of him being too exhausted. I mean, and you know, the American public see this with their own eyes. I mean, he rambles. He oftentimes goes off on tangents when he's talking about different things. I think he's come up with a name for it, calling it the weave, I believe that's what he calls it. He refuses to give out his medical records. He's incoherent. He's babbling. And I think that he moves a lot slower than he did in 2016. The fact of the matter is, this person who's running for president at 78 years old, and I'm not trying to be ageist, this is just a fact, is not the same person who ran for office in 2016. You mix that with the chaos, and Kamala Harris has a good message that will land with voters about whether or not he's fit to run for office.
Lance Trover.
Look, at this juncture of a campaign, I look at the outward body language of campaigns, and look, Donald Trump has the best team he's ever had in all of his campaigns.
That's true.
He is as on message for Donald Trump as he ever has been in all of his campaigns. And so I would argue, when I see, you know, to me it's a level of confidence coming out of this campaign, because at this point you're saying I don't need to go out there and make mistakes. And I think canceling interviews is not uncommon. If you feel confident and comfortable where you are in a race, there's no need to go out and take on some of those.
I'm going to take issue with you about the notion that he's on message. Because I don't think he's on message. I think he's off message. I think he goes off message every single day when he goes off on these wild tangents and when he criticizes Kamala Harris personally, calling her dumb and stupid. I think that turns off women voters. And the people I talk to in his campaign want him to talk about the issues. They want him to talk about the Biden economy and all the rest of it. And he keeps on talking about other things, and I don't think that's on message.
To your point, and where he is tonight, what we've heard from the former president of the United States multiple times, even in Detroit, Michigan, is castigating the people of Detroit.
Right.
I mean, it's kind of like when you have one of those very, very tired celebrity rock stars and they're in Philadelphia and they say, and hello, hello Detroit, right? And they're in the wrong city. They don't know where they are. But he continues to lambast the people of Detroit, and you're starting to see that resonate. And so this all ties in, because what you know and what Gloria and everybody else knows is that these candidates are about to move into their final message. They're about to move into what, in the last 10 to 14 days, they're moving into that closing message. And as you continue to lay out the barbs, this message that this man may not be fit for office is not just the chaos. It's like, look at him. I mean, you don't lie. You don't lie. Look at what you're lying out.
Look at the 39 minutes of dance music at the town hall instead of answering questions.
Well, again, I go to the outward body language. I think the Trump campaign is projecting confidence, and I would argue that the Harris campaign has less confidence over the course of the last week. If you look at last week, they sent Barack Obama out to admonish black men for not voting for Kamala Harris. You've seen this week her rushing to do interviews with any podcast and anybody who will talk to her. 60 days of that she thought she didn't have to do because she thought she had it wrapped up. They're still trying to bait him on debates 2 weeks out. That's not the sign to me of a confident campaign. And if you look at the Rust Belt, let me just add, if you look at the Rust Belt, Alyssa Slotkin in Michigan running for Senate is sitting there waving the red flag saying she has problems. Bob Casey and Tammy Baldwin in Pennsylvania, sitting Democratic U.S. senators, are using Donald Trump's in their political advertising right now. So to me, that's not a sign that Democrats feel like they have this wrapped up.
Democrats are never confident. Let me just explain to you about
I've heard this
Democrats.
a million
We are proverbial bedwetters who clutch our pearls every night after our now.
I'm saying look at the body language, but look at the body language of
But
what's
I
going
think
on.
think that you have a very confident Kamala Harris right now. She's hitting her stride. She's attacking him. She's doing the work. She was in 3 cities yesterday, 3 cities today. I mean, she's literally outworking Donald Trump. What we do know, though, is this is a jump ball. So I think people better.
Yeah.
You only
No
run
question
two
about it.
ways in American politics. You either run unopposed or you run scared. And so a lot of Democrats are running scared.
Smart campaigns always run as if they're way behind
Correct.
in the polls. And That's the only way to do it. Bakari, I want you to listen to another striking moment from Trump's Fox News interview where Trump was asked why the Civil War, our Civil War, wasn't settled. Listen to this.
Lincoln was probably a great president, although I've always said, why wasn't that settled? You know, I'm a guy that it doesn't make sense. We had a Civil War.
Well, half the country left before he got there.
Yeah. But you'd almost say, like, why wasn't that? As an example, Ukraine would have never happened, and Russia, if I were president. Israel would have never happened. October 7th would have never happened.
Go ahead. What's your reaction?
Well, first, I'm trying to translate because he meandered a great deal. It also shows a lack of sensitivity and a lack of grasp of American history. And I kind of tie that into when he referred to January 6th as kind of like a day of joy or exuberance, a day of love. And, you know, what I remember about January 6th, Wolf, is there are a lot of different things people remember, but I remember these people carrying the Confederate flag through the United States Capitol. I mean, that tore a piece of my heart out. You know, coming from South Carolina, we know what the Confederate flag stood for. We know why the war was fought. This is not the war of northern aggression, as some of my friends want to call it. This was because black folk were in bondage and we built this country. If you tie that into the Department of Education answer, where he said if you teach about slavery, we're going to defund your schools, I mean, that should strike a chord with the American public. Not only is he unstable, but it's scary.
Well, but this is Donald Trump saying that he is a better president than Abraham Lincoln was. And
Because
that
Abraham Lincoln didn't settle
didn't
the
settle
Civil
the
War.
He said
Civil
probably.
War.
He said probably a great
Probably
president.
a great president. He didn't say he was a great president, right? And
By settling the Civil War, does that mean he would have had the North would have had to accept at least some slavery?
I mean,
it's like Ukraine would have to.
I am certainly not a Trump campaign spokesperson. I'm not sure what was said. Look, this leans into it. He says a lot of things, and I would just say and point to the continual polling that is out there. People know that he says things. People, they go to his rallies because they're fun and he's boisterous and does these things. But if you look at the polling, voters are very clear-eyed about who Donald Trump is out there right now. He is on the verge of winning. I would almost argue he's almost in the driver's seat at this point in the election. Voters are clear-eyed about who he is, and that's what this next couple of weeks are going to be about. And
But you
know,
can go either
he-
way on
he-
being clear-eyed about who he is.
But you are correct because Kamala Harris is an underdog, and so that underdog mentality is going to ride through November 5th.
Let's see what happens. All right, guys.